What's up, everybody? My name is Brian of Brian and Teacher React, and today I am reacting to episode 9 of WandaVision, the finale, which is what we have all been waiting for. People have had theories for days, for weeks, really, about how this was going to end. And in preparation for today's video, I decided to make a list of questions broken down into the most important questions that I want answered, the questions that are kind of important to answer, and then the questions that will be nice to get an answer to, but they're not necessarily mandatory or anything like that. So they're not as important. But the most important questions, I think, are number one, what is the post-end-game status of Vision? Is Vision dead, or we know he's dead, but is he going to stay dead for the foreseeable future, or is he now back because of White Vision? And speaking of White Vision, I just have White Vision and then a question mark, because any answers as to what White Vision is would be great to know, right? So is this Ultron? Is he gonna have, well, we can kind of just assume that he's a villain, even though I haven't seen the episode yet. We're about to get that answered in a second. But just any questions answered about White Vision, who or what he is, etc., etc. And then what is Hayward's goals? Okay, and the assumption is that he wants Vision to weaponize him. We have to see if that's true or not. Is the Hex going to stay up post WandaVision? So are we going to see an end to the Hex, or is the Hex going to have something to do with Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness? Who is Evan Peters really? If not Quicksilver, then who? It was a popular theory for a long time that he was Mephisto. We don't know. We don't know if he's really Quicksilver. If this was just a really good a really good game that they've been running on everybody by casting Evan Peters as Quicksilver when he's really not. What's the status of Quicksilver? So I think that's a pretty important question, considering his presence in this show, and he was supposed to be dead. So is Agatha answering to a higher power? So this ties in Mephisto again. So is she working by herself? She seems like she's powerful enough to work by herself. She's been around since the 1600s, since the Salem witch trial. So she might not be answering to a Mephisto or Nightmare or something like that, but we're going to have to wait and see. Are Wanda's kids actually real? So in the comics, a lot of people have been bringing this up. In the comics, Wanda's kids were not real at all. That was part of the reason why she broke down, right, in that comic book series in House of M. They don't have to necessarily follow House of M. They could say, hey, technically Vision could exist outside of the Hex. Now, we saw that wasn't going well for him. So I don't know how long that would have lasted, but he was able to step outside of the Hex and be real. We've also seen examples of when Wanda would change the material of something that went inside the Hex, it would still be changed outside of the Hex. So there have been little, clues to suggest that maybe the kids could survive or can survive outside of the Hex. We don't know. That's something else that's going to have to be answered. And I think that's going to be answered based on whether or not the Hex stays up after this show, or whether or not it's either destroyed, or whether or not Wanda, pulls it back down, essentially. We're going to have to wait and see. So if the Hex stays up after the show, for whatever reason, then you would have to assume that Vision, the Vision that she's familiar with, and her children are going to stay around as well after the show. But we're going to have to wait and see. So those are all of the important questions that I think we have to have answered. But then there are the, quote, kind of important questions. So there aren't that many. I have 3. So will we see Spectrum use her powers? So we saw Spectrum gain her powers in episode 7. Yeah, episode 7. We saw her gain her powers, and then we saw her kind of do like a superhero landing, but we haven't actually seen her use her powers per se. Now, we don't know if she will. And this might have something to do with, the fact that they might not have wanted, because Spectrum is really powerful. She's extremely OP, right? So they might not want to give her that much attention. This is Wanda's show. I'm not sure if we're going to actually see her use her powers or not. And then who is Ralph, right? So we've seen all of this conversation about Ralph. Agnes or Agatha has mentioned Ralph in practically every episode she's been in. So we don't know. Like, we don't know if it's the rabbit or what. We don't even know if that Ralph is important to this. And then I just have Darcy and Jimmy Woo with a question mark. How are their characters going to be wrapped up at the end of this show? But then we have the not as important questions. So if we don't get answers to these questions, I don't really see it as a big deal. So who were like the couple in the commercials? Who were they? Are they important or are they not important? Who is Monica's secret engineer contact? Again, like, we might have already gotten the answer to their question in episode 7, but that might not have been something really important to begin with. So I personally wanted it to be Blue Marvel. A lot of people wanted it to be Reed Richards. We'll see. We don't know. Will Doctor Strange show up at the end? That's also been heavily speculated. We're going to have to wait and see. And then, is Dottie in on it? There's a new theory going on. I don't know how new it is, but there's a theory going around that Dottie is also a witch. So I think the thing about a finale, before I start the show, the thing about a finale is you're supposed to be wrapping everything up, right? The only reason you introduce a new character in a finale is to tie it into another series, which is certainly possible, but it's totally possible we won't be getting any new characters at all. It's totally possible we won't be getting any information about Ralph, Mephisto, any sort of big bad other than Agatha, and Doctor Strange. Well, Doctor Strange isn't new, but so he could pop up theoretically, but any sort of new character like Blue Marvel or Reed Richards, I don't think any of that is going to happen in this particular episode, but I could be wrong. I'm looking at it right now, and this episode is 49 minutes. So with the credits and everything, I'm thinking it's probably going to be around 42, 43 minutes. So let us now begin. All right, so we have seen the end of WandaVision, and boy, oh boy, was it an amazing ending. Some unexpected things as well. So I think at the end, I originally said, I said a second ago, I said it's a reference to Nick Fury, because Nick Fury is an old friend of her mother's. Great show, great finale, but let's go over some of these questions that I mentioned at the beginning. So what is the post-Endgame status of Vision? Is he dead or alive? We now know that it's kind of both. Vision is both dead and he is alive. But I think White Vision and Vision changing his memory, or at least showing him the past and showing him what happened, I think this is a way of bringing Vision back into the MCU in a different form, basically. So I'm glad to see that. Glad to see Paul Bettany is still going to be around. I definitely want to see him continue his work in the MCU because I think he does a great job as Vision. And then what is Hayward's goal? Hayward's goal was to go to jail. Hayward's goal was to basically, White Vision said that his directive was to destroy the Vision. So, Hayward was just a standard, kind of just a standard suit villain, basically, for all intents and purposes. Is the Hex going to stay up post show? No, the Hex is down. The Hex is down. The Hex is done. The Hex is gone. So that's not going to have anything to do, at least from what we can tell. It's not going to have anything to do with the Multiverse of Madness. Okay, who is Evan Peters really? Well, we now have the answers to that. Evan Peters was Ralph. But that really wasn't, so I think what happened was Agnes or Agatha sort of took over, since she wasn't from there, she took over Ralph's house. So she kept mentioning Ralph, and Ralph was really honestly a nobody for all intents and purposes. Like, Ralph wasn't even her real husband. I don't think she actually had a husband. I think that she just took over that particular house and put some sort of hex onto Ralph. Okay, and that's actually Ralph's real name, and she gave him the powers within Wanda's hex. She gave him the powers of Quicksilver to make Wanda think that that was her brother, and it really wasn't. It was just some random neighbor in the neighborhood. That's what I think it was. Like, I don't think, and I honestly think they just casted Evan Peters to throw everybody for a loop. Honestly, that's what it's looking like. He's not actually Quicksilver, though. I mean, that has been, I think, confirmed. And I wanted that. I wanted him to be from the multiverse. I kind of wanted all of that too, but it doesn't look like they went in that direction with it. Is Agatha answering to a higher power? No. And I said this before I actually started doing the reaction. I said Agatha is powerful enough to where she doesn't need to answer to a higher power. So there was no Mephisto involved here. And I said that would be kind of weird anyway, because for a finale, you don't really typically introduce a whole new character unless you're just setting up a cliffhanger. And they didn't really set up a cliffhanger in this. Like, they really wrapped the show up. I mean, they did a little thing with, like, Monica at the end, but that's not really a cliffhanger per se. Are Wanda's kids real? That was another important question that we needed answered. The answer to that question is no. Her kids are gone now too. But unlike House of M, when she lost her kids and said no more mutants, she just lost her kids and that was it. And she's just depressed again. So that's a very depressing character, Scarlet Witch. She never gets what she wants, it seems like. Then I had some kind of important questions. So, will we see Spectrum use her powers? We saw a little bit of that. We saw her basically change her organic body into energy, and the bullets passed through her. So we saw a little bit of her powers, but again, they didn't get OP with Spectrums or Photon Spectrum. I'm not sure what name they're going to use with her, but they didn't go OP with her powers because I don't think they wanted her to upstage Wanda. They didn't want her to upstage the Scarlet Witch, which that's something that I kind of expected though. Then I said, who was Ralph? We have the answer to that. And then Darcy, Jimmy Woo. We saw a little bit of Darcy, not much. And we saw a little bit of Jimmy Woo, not much. But yeah, that's pretty much it with them. I'm sure we'll see them in future shows or future movies. And then I had some not as important questions. I don't think we had an answer to... Well, actually we did. So the couple in the commercials, I think that they were just a random couple. I don't think that they were anybody important. Who was Monica's secret engineer? Again, that's not something that was important. I think that's something that we all, speculators and things like that kind of blew out of proportion. It wasn't Reed Richards. It wasn't Blue Marvel. It was just some random... It was actually the group of people that she met in the woods when she tried to go into the Hex, but failed in episode 7. That's who the engineer was. Will Doctor Strange show up? No. And then is Dottie in on it? No. Dottie was not in on it. Dottie was not a witch. Dottie was just someone in the town who was manipulated like everybody else was. It was a very popular theory, and it was a very good theory, but she wasn't a witch, though. So, my whole opinion on this show is, awesome, amazing. Falcon and the Winter Soldier have big shoes to fill because this show had it all. The one thing I am glad with regards to Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I'm glad the episodes are going to be longer. I actually felt it in this episode, like for the first time. I actually felt like this was going on longer than usual. But truth be told, I don't think when you factor in the credits, I don't think it's terribly longer than like episode 8, to be honest with you. Maybe a couple minutes, but not that much longer. because I think episode 8 was like 47 minutes with the credits. So without credits, it was probably like around 43 minutes or so anyway. So yeah, I think in terms of actual story, it was around the same length as the last episode. But I don't really have a problem with that. I think they wrapped it up well. I think they wrapped it up nice. I think they ended on a mostly positive note. They didn't have a dark ending or an ending that was too emotional. I think they got a lot of the emotional stuff out in the last episode. But yeah, like I'm gonna drop a theory video sometime soon about where I think they should take Scarlet Witch's character or Wanda's character or however you say that. So that be on the lookout for that as well. I'm not sure about what show I'm going to follow up with next outside of Falcon and the Winter Soldier, but that's towards like the end of the month. And I am doing reactions for Superman and Lois as well. So definitely check out my reaction to episode 2 that I just posted yesterday. Be on the lookout for future videos. This is a new channel. You will be seeing Tisha in the future as well. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Like, share, and subscribe. And thank you for watching.